warm welcome to yet another exciting and amazing episode of the Goldmine Show. We are excited just to come to you to keep reminding you that greatness is resident on the inside of you and you can't quit on the battle of bringing it out. Today we have an amazing story. My guest actually needs no introduction. You've known her for a long time. She's been telling stories all her life and you will definitely be listening to this. This is Goldmine coming to you from the Pete's Cafe, and I'm excited to introduce my guest, an amazing friend of mine, Mandi, CEO of Mandi Media. This is where media hosts media. How about that?
Yes.
Carol, good to have you on the show.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for making time for us.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
Yeah? Very excited, man. I grew up seeing you, reading your articles.
In the newspaper.
Absolutely. In the newspaper, in the magazine, the True Love magazine as well.
Yes.
You've done an amazing job.
Yeah.
And our conversation today is more about telling your story.
Yes.
And I think there is power in owning your story. There's definitely power in owning your story. We all come from different sets of backgrounds, have had different experiences, but at the end of the day, I think you've got to own your story.
Yes.
And that's what you've done.
Yeah. It's really about your life.
Right.
I always look at it this way. I say that from the moment a person is born, even before you're born within a context.
Correct.
So you're born in, let's say, a village in Nyeri County, so you're born somewhere, and that is part of your story.
Correct.
But even before you are born, there's an element to which there's something that is deposited inside you as a human being. There's a talent, there's a gift, there's a personality, a way of being. And all those things come together eventually in part of your story.
Correct.
So as you grow, my father-in-law used to say, my late father-in-law used to say that you always see a person as they grow from the time they're coming up. You can tell, is this tree going to be straight? Is it going to be like this?
Correct.
And if it's going to be like this, you're going to have to stake it so it stays straight.
Correct.
So there are certain things that are inbuilt in you that you have to work out. Okay? Certain things that will be strengths for you.
Right.
And those will help your story,
Right.
and certain things that will be weaknesses for you that you have to ensure that they don't hinder your progress.
Right.
Hence the story of staking the tree so that it stays upright and it grows the way it's supposed to grow.
And you see, the combination of those things is what we call the gold mine here.
Yes, absolutely.
Because every one of us is a gold mine. And we've got to go reach in and pull out the greatness in it.
Yes.
But if we don't package it also and position it for the greatness that it is, probably we sell ourselves a shot.
Yes, absolutely. But it all begins with the beginning.
Right.
In the beginning.
Right, in the beginning.
In the beginning. You have to go to the beginning.
Correct.
Because if you think about it, I mean, even in the Bible, God talks about, in the beginning, God was. So before what we know, there was something that was still working out. And it's the same thing with a human being story, with your personal story. There is a beginning that before you knew who you are. And that's why I talk about the things that have been put inside you, because that is when you understand that, then you're able to craft and position your story properly and appropriately.
Correct.
Every single person has a story.
Right.
Sometimes people look over the course of telling stories of people. People tell you, I don't have a story, but every single person has a story. Where do you come from? What were your parents' hopes and aspirations when you were born? What was it like the day you were born?
But you see, Carol,
did it rain?
You bring an interesting one, because those beginnings is what a lot of times we are ashamed of.
We are ashamed of it.
We are not proud about. In fact, a lot of times we want to tell a story that delinks.
Yes.
The beginning.
It's very
tell
interesting.
the rosier side of things.
Absolutely. I mean, I know of a particular lady who grew up in hardship. And she was, I always say this, when people say, okay, so how come you've done all the things that you've done? I always say, you know what, I wasn't trying to be successful. That wasn't the plan. I was trying not to fail, one. I was maybe running away from, what do you call it? From poverty. Okay, so a lot of people are running away from poverty. And they've told themselves, you're not trying.
You're trying to run away from failure.
Yes, you're trying not to fail, and you're trying not to be poor. Some people are trying to be rich, and some people become rich by trying not to be poor.
Correct.
Okay, so it's a little bit of an interesting conundrum.
Like a whole Harvard class.
No, but it is the truth. So you're trying not to be poor. You're running from poverty.
Right.
And so you're making decisions
You probably
based
grew
on
in it,
on
you
on
don't
that.
like it.
I don't like
Right.
it. I don't want to live in a one-room house that separates, what separates where I sleep and where my parents sleep is a bed is a curtain. Okay.
Actually, a bed sheet converted
It's
to a curtain.
exactly.
Right.
I don't want that. And so that's the mental picture at the back of your mind, and you're running away from it. So you're making decisions and people are thinking this person is driven, they're driven. But what you're doing is you're running away from, not
far away
necessarily
from
running towards. And there's nothing wrong
Right.
as long as you understand your intrinsic motivation. But so now back to this lady's story. So when she got out of the ghetto, as we call it,
Right.
she wanted to whitewash that aspect of her life. She never talked about it, never referred to where she grew up, never kept in touch with people that she had grown up with. But it was something that I think to an extent she was ashamed of,
Right.
because she wanted to identify more with her success.
Right.
But how powerful it would have been if she was able to say, look, I came from here. It was terrible, it was difficult, I hated it, but look how far God has brought me. Look how far working hard and having a dream and a vision has brought me. So you've got to own the beginning.
And I think it's important because sometimes we see the successful part, but if we are not able to link it to the struggle part,
Yes.
then probably there's a link that misses in terms of us being
Yes.
able to connect.
You
with
will
what your story-
disconnect.
We disconnect.
You will disconnect
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
Because everybody, okay, let's talk about the elements of a really good story.
Go ahead.
And one of the elements of a really good story is conflict. Whenever you watch a good story, whether you're watching it as a movie,
Right.
so you need to remember that everything is about a story being told.
Right.
When you're watching a movie, you're watching a story. When you're reading a book, you're reading a story.
Right.
Okay. When you're living your life, you're creating your story.
Right.
So one of the things about a great story is conflict.
Right.
And that's why Shakespeare was probably the greatest playwright, is because he created stories that had a lot of conflict,
Right.
where the characters had to resolve certain things about themselves, resolve certain things in their environment. And that's what, when we're put in this world, we're going to face conflict.
Right.
And what is that conflict? It could be trying to, get away from poverty. That's your conflict.
Right.
It could be trying to overcome a weakness that you have.
Right.
That is it's called an Achilles heel.
Right.
Something that is always sabotaging you.
Right.
Whatever it is, that is your conflict that you must resolve. So when you're born, in the beginning, you're given a set of gifts
Right.
and talents. You come in with some strengths, some that are innate, some that you develop, and you come in also with weaknesses. Okay, and then you're given a conflict. You're given a problem to solve.
Right.
Every single person
Right.
is given a problem to solve.
Life
And
looks
your
like it's also a
life's
problem to solve as well.
exactly, your
Right.
life's meaning is in solving your problem.
That's profound.
So and resolving that conflict. So yeah.
And therefore, there is no way then that story becomes complete only by the successful side of things.
No.
It's going to bring the conflict of what it is that we had to overcome
Yes.
and go through.
Yes. Yes.
So that conflict must come through.
The conflict must come through.
It's a
So
part of that
you
story.
must accept it. You must embrace it.
Right.
Embrace the negative elements. Embrace the weaknesses. Now, when I say this,
Right.
I'm also speaking, to be very honest, as a person who, because I package things.
Right.
You know, I come from the magazine world where even when you see the cover, we've photoshopped that cover. The one picture that you're seeing on the cover, we've taken maybe 5,000 pictures.
Right.
So we're choosing the best. We're
Right.
portraying somebody in a certain way.
Right. Right.
So I come from that sort of background. So it's very easy for me also, it's very difficult for me rather, to show my ugly sides.
Right.
But the older I've grown, the more I've realized that people need to see that. They need to see the weaknesses. They need to see the challenges. And it only makes the whole story that much richer. Now, in the process of telling a story, and I'd like us to look at it from, if we just look at it, maybe even using the Bible.
Right.
You've got the underdog in the Bible. If you look at someone like David,
Right.
King David, that we all love that story.
Right.
You're talking about an underdog.
Right.
You're talking about a person who people overlook. Your own family overlooks and thinks you'll never amount to anything.
Correct.
Yet you rise up to become the king.
Right.
And so when you look at our normal situations, a lot of us come from that kind of setting,
Right.
where people wrote you off.
Right.
Maybe because you came from this village that nobody has ever gone to university in that village.
Right.
That's your story.
Right.
But you are the underdog. So you
Right.
must always remember
Yep.
that there's no great victory, there's no epic tale
Correct.
without the people looking down upon you. It may have hurt you, but it was part of what made you who you are. You've got the Rahab, you've got the prostitute. We don't want to talk about those people.
Right.
We don't want to bring them into mainstream
Right,
media,
right.
because we push them to the fringes of society, and people make them feel like if you have made those kind of mistakes, if you've had a scarlet past, that you're not worthy of anything. You're not worthy of love. You're
Right.
not worthy to be listened
Correct.
to. But that's part of your story.
Right.
And so you embracing your story, owning your story is about saying, yeah, okay, so I'm the scarlet woman
Yep.
in my life,
Yep.
in my community.
With a straight face.
Look at what I've been able to achieve,
Right.
or I've been able to become,
Correct.
despite the mistakes I have made.
And the bit of despite
despite.
begins to then turn the whole story
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
And brings out the beauty. Now, and the question then becomes, and what mind frame is this? And I think we've got to then build a certain mind frame that allows us to take both ends of our stick and to own it for what it is, but retain focus on where it is that we want to go.
Yes.
So that then ultimately we're able to turn around that whole story and then get to a pedestal that is a great place.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. If you don't, your story will become a predictable tale.
Correct.
Your life story will become a predictable tale.
Right.
So when you're talking about how do I then turn my story?
Yeah.
I know where I come from.
Yep.
What are the tools I need to get to where I want to go?
Correct.
Because I don't want to be that predictable story. Everybody switches off. If you're watching a movie and it becomes predictable and you know what's going to happen, you will
don't-
not watch it. You'll
Correct.
switch it off.
Right.
But if there's suspense,
Yep.
if it could go either way,
Right.
it will keep you glued there.
Right.
So when you as an individual begin to say, okay, this is my story.
Right.
I come from a family where everybody is a drunkard,
Right.
for instance.
Right.
And they said to me, that's not my story, I'm just
Right.
giving
Yeah, as an example, yes. Yeah.
And they said to me
Yep.
that all the men in this family, they all drink,
Right.
and they're all drunkards.
Right.
What do I need to take, in the in-between to change everything? I've grown up, maybe my mother used to brew changa to put us in school. That's my beginning. But what do I need? What tools do I need? What mindset do I need
To turn it
be
around.
able to turn it around?
Correct.
So that I can have a different outcome? Because becoming a drunkard, if you came from a family of drunkards, is predictable.
Correct.
And there's nothing inspiring or helpful to you or to
Yep.
the world.
Yep. Yep.
But being able to turn that using certain tools, using an ideology, a
Yep.
way of thinking,
Yep.
to being able to turn that so that you can have a different ending.
Right.
That's
a news.
Yeah.
That's a big deal right there.
That's the big
Is
deal.
there a story too gross that then I should delink from, or no matter how gross it
Every
is?
story, regardless of, in fact, the grosser the better.
But that grosser is what I want to run away from a lot of times.
It's true.
Right.
It's true. The grosser the better.
Yep.
It's interesting. There's this, I'm going back again because I think the Bible tells the most amazing stories.
Yes, it's an amazing storybook.
And I always say that God doesn't edit the Bible. He
Right.
puts everything in there.
Just
the
raw as it is.
bad, the ugly, the
Right.
good, the beautiful.
Right, right.
So who am I as a person
Yep.
to edit out from people, what they've been through? So now there's this story
Yeah.
that I really like
Yeah.
in the Bible.
Yeah.
It's a story of this woman,
Yep.
the Samaritan woman at the well.
Right.
And she has had 5 husbands.
Correct. And even the one she has right now
Is
is not her own.
hers.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, isn't that an amazing story?
Right.
That woman,
Yep.
if that woman lived in Africa today,
Yes.
in Nairobi today,
Yep.
she would be in the blogs, or this woman,
castigated by everybody and all of that.
She's that nasty person.
Correct.
So we're talking about gross.
Right.
But this woman had an encounter.
Right.
And that encounter changes her life. So regardless of how gross, it doesn't matter. We need to give people, we need to tell stories without judgment.
Right.
And give people the ability to say, yes, I've had 5 husbands.
Right. That's
know,
my story.
But now I've met a man
and here comes
who has
now
changed
correct my life. Right.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, some of those stories that you're calling the beginnings is become the foundation on which even our own self-confidence and our own sense of worth and value and all of that stuff stems from. And we find ourselves self-assured does not apply, self-confidence does not apply, and we become wrecks if we are unable to master the beginnings.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So how do you go back? You're so right. How do you go back? Because people say, my parents never gave me confidence.
Right.
There's a place your parents play. There's a part your parents play.
Right.
The first 18 years of your life.
Right.
They may take you to school, they may not take you to school.
Right.
Hopefully they will.
Right.
After 18, everything else is you.
Right.
It's up to you and your God.
Yep.
So there's a point that it doesn't matter that I grew up in Kahuhia village.
Right.
It doesn't matter that my father, was violent.
Right.
It will affect you, but you've got to change the narrative.
And own that story.
You've got to own the story and change the narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, there's questions of self-esteem and all of that. A lot of them have been traced to where I came from.
Yes.
And sometimes I see people spinning on either direction. Either
Yes.
I go down completely,
Yes.
or I start to feign
Yes.
who I am meant to be, and I'm probably not. So let's talk about this. Sometimes back to the beginnings, like you talked about. So how we handle them will either get us to move forward or to move back.
Yes.
But I want us to get into a bit more detail. Dealing with this conflict. Sometimes it's easier said than done. They are not hypothetical. They are real. And the question of then the how we get to deal with them. And I want us just to get into a bit of that detail. Let's call some of them out.
Yes.
And how to deal with them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So conflicts are very interesting. Thank
Yeah.
you for that question.
Right.
Because the conflict you're supposed to resolve in your life story could be an environmental conflict. Let's start from there.
Right.
So there are people who are born in, let's say, very arid, poor areas where they have to, walk kilometers to get water, and that child still has to go to school and perform just as well as a child in Nairobi.
Correct.
Okay, so that child has to overcome a conflict within the environment.
Correct.
So that's the reality.
Right.
The child born in Kibera, in the slums, has to overcome a real conflict. What it is for that child to get to school.
Right.
They have to go through gangs.
Right.
They have to go through changa dens,
Yep.
people peddling drugs,
Right.
for that child to make it to school.
Or a child in a pastoralist area.
Or a child in a pastoralist area.
Correct.
So there's an environmental conflict.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
depending on where most of us born in Africa will have to face something like that.
Right.
And that you must overcome. But
Right.
there is something we used to be told when we were growing up called that education is the key.
Right.
There are certain keys that we are given.
Right.
And those keys will open up a world for that pastoralist child, that child in Kibera, or whichever child, or even a child coming from an affluent area or family.
Correct.
So that key
Right.
can be a very good equalizer.
Right.
But the child has to open it,
Correct.
has to use it. Okay. So there are environmental conflicts.
Right.
There are internal conflicts
Right.
that you have to, also surmount. Personality conflicts.
Correct.
So you were talking about self-esteem and saying, okay, yeah, so I nobody helped me grow or
Right.
build my self-esteem.
Right.
Today, in today's day and age and world, we actually have very few excuses.
Right.
Because if you can access a phone, a smartphone,
Right.
we can access televisions, whether it is in a village center or anywhere.
Right.
Information, in the information age, information comes to you.
Right.
Information finds you where you are. So being able to take that information and now use it as a key. We're finding children growing up in different places who are creating computers using scrap metal. So why? Because information has found them.
Right.
They didn't need to come to Nairobi
Right.
to get the information. It's gone to where they are.
Right.
So there are internal challenges that you have to surmount.
And sometimes I think the internal ones are proving more difficult to surmount than external.
Absolutely.
On the external, there seem to be quite a number of interventions
Yes.
available. But then the internal one, either your mindset, I say we have anger issues, we have
Yes.
unforgiveness issues,
Yes.
we have got bitterness issues and all of those things. It looks like then they're becoming a bigger issue than the external issues.
Yes, because we accept them.
Right,
We think to ourselves, this is the way I am.
right.
I am a kissy, I was born with a temper.
I have a certificate.
Yes, so I must just have a temper.
Correct.
You know, I mean, and so those things, because we don't actually look at them as things I need to work against
And to overcome.
and to overcome.
Right.
And one of the biggest things that anybody needs is self-awareness.
Correct.
Become a student of yourself.
Right.
Understand yourself.
Right.
Understand, if I don't fix my anger issues,
Right.
it will cost me my family.
Right.
My children will be estranged
Correct.
from me.
Correct.
It may cost me my job.
Right.
If I don't fix this issue of alcoholism,
Right.
it may cost me my job. It may
Correct.
cost me my family.
Correct.
So those things.
And there are many that have taken that path.
exactly.
And it has costed
Do
them.
not accept it. Do not say.
I think we need to stay there a bit more calm because then you bring important issues. Sometimes we accept them, sometimes we justify them, sometimes we defend them, and it takes away our ability then to overcome them and deal with them. And I think there are so many people today that gets the prospects of who they could be undermined by the fact that then they would not overcome and deal with what's on the inside.
Absolutely. I mean, think about, even let's look at famous examples,
Yeah.
musicians.
Right,
Let's look at one of the most famous musicians of our era, Michael Jackson.
right,
Brilliant, talented, amazing human being.
right,
Gave us a body of work. Yet had this one, actually several Achilles heels that now are coming to light. Look at people, I'm talking about that generation,
Right.
the R. Kellys of that generation.
Right.
Achilles heels
Right.
coming back.
Right.
A sexual dysfunction
right,
that, you know, that is now biting him today.
right,
So because they were unable to see, they didn't look at it as something I need to work out. You know, it will cost you your life. You know, so you could be famous, you could, to all intents and purposes, even look very successful. But because you've not been able to deal with this one thing that is, let's call it an Achilles heel, a
Right.
weakness.
Right.
It will derail you.
Right.
It will cut short your life.
Right.
You will die before your 50th birthday. Why?
So as I work so hard on that external view and image and everything else, I've got to also constantly work on who I'm also becoming.
Yes.
And dealing with my character, if you may,
Yes.
or those Achilles heels. Allow me to use your term.
Yes, I
Yeah.
love it. I love what you're saying.
Right.
Because it is the process of becoming.
Correct.
A human being evolves
Right.
over time.
Right.
Who we are today is not who we were when we were 20.
Correct.
So it's the process of becoming. You must never stop becoming a student of yourself, becoming
Right.
a student of life.
Correct.
You know,
Correct.
finding out, what do I need? What tools do I need to use in my current circumstances to change my environment, to change myself? What tools do I need? Always ask yourself that question.
Right.
Never be comfortable. Never be comfortable with the status quo.
Right.
Always seek a new mountain
Right.
to climb, even in your personal development as a human being.
Right. Right.
You know, I want to become a better person than I was 2 years ago because I know better.
Correct. So I then identify my issues, and therefore then we discuss then what tools are available
Yes.
to help me deal with what it is.
Yes.
Then I'm able to progress.
Yes.
Fantastic. So then I keep looking forward. I'm conscious of my issues. I'm conscious of what tools then I can use. Then how do I then package this tool to continue working for me? Because at the end of the day, Carol, it still needs to work for me. Yep.
It has to work for you on several fronts.
Right.
It has to work for you on an income. Okay, you know, we're put on this planet, huh? And much as your story shouldn't just be a story of, I think there was a story of Simon Makonde. Was it Simon Makonde?
Who was born on
Monday. And
was baptized, I think, on a Tuesday.
Yes. And
married on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Right.
he died on a Sunday.
Right.
And that's all we know about Simon Makonde.
Correct.
We don't know if Simon Makonde, built anything with his life.
Yep.
We know the rites of passage of Simon
That he
Makonde
went through.
that he went through.
Right.
What did he do with his life? Did he build anything?
It's not even told.
Did he raise amazing children who became presidents?
Right.
You know? So
his legacy, we know nothing about it.
We don't know.
Right.
And how many of us exist going through rites of passage
Right.
that says that if I got married, I am okay. If I got baptized, I am okay. But there's no impact. Your life does not have the impact that it could.
And that's
you
profound.
miss your potential.
We don't just live for the milestones.
Not for the milestones.
It's going to have to be richer than that. That's
Leave
profound.
something behind.
Right.
Leave something behind. Leave a book behind.
Right.
Leave a song behind.
Correct.
You know, leave a building behind.
Right.
Leave a piece of art behind.
Correct.
Leave something behind.
Let something remind us that you
That
existed.
you lived.
Right.
Yeah.
And you had an impact.
Impact.
Right.
Impact. So personal impact for yourself.
Right.
So that even if I never leave Kahuhia village,
Right.
I don't know if there's actually such a village.
It
but
is, but
okay.
it's not very far from where I come from.
Even I've had it somewhere.
Right.
Even if I never leave Kahuhia village,
Right.
but because I existed between the era of 1930 to 1990, for
Right,
instance,
right.
I ensured that we built a dispensary
Correct,
in Kahuhia.
correct.
I ensured that we brought good leadership to Kahuhia.
Right.
Something, there has to be impact.
It's a question of how better was the world just because you were a part
Yeah,
of it.
yeah.
It's going to be a better place because
Yes.
you came around.
Yes,
Fantastic. Fantastic. Now, and therefore packaging this story, because then that's the aspiration. The world must be a better place because I was there. But the question becomes, and you talked about it even in terms of how you model the models in the magazine and all of that. So what becomes a good tenant of then how I package my story? One, for it to work for me so that I can have greater impact and I can leave a better legacy and all of that stuff. How do I go about doing that?
You know, it's interesting. Whether we want to believe it or not,
Yep.
it's a brilliant question. Whether we want to believe it or not, every single day I'm packaging myself. When you get up in the morning, you dress in a certain way,
Yep.
you're packaging
Yep.
yourself.
Yep.
When you write your resume, you're packaging yourself. And you will customize your resume based on the company that you're applying to. You know, there are certain skills you will amplify in one place and in another place you won't.
Right.
So you're always doing that for it to work for you. One of the biggest challenges we have is over-revealing. Over-revealing things that we don't need to reveal. So how do I bring the best parts of myself forward? How do I bring the worst parts of myself but show a success story
Around
that
them.
will inspire somebody?
Right.
Inspire my children. Tell them, okay, I used to be the last in class, but now look, I'm doing this. You know,
Right.
how do I bring
Unfortunately, a lot of parents were always first
number
in
one?
class.
Yes. So how do you package that story?
Right.
And you will package it for different audiences.
Correct.
When you go back to the village in Kahuhia,
Yep.
you will tell them that, look, I am a son of this village.
Right.
You will tell them about the places you used to play.
Right.
The place you used to go catch tadpoles.
Right.
You will package that story.
Right.
So that you can inspire somebody there.
Correct.
Okay?
Correct.
When it comes to the workplace, you will package yourself for the greatest impact. So you will understand that, and this is a challenge I notice with, particularly when you work with certain, very young generations, they sort of say, accept me as I am. Just accept me. If I
Right.
come with 10 earrings and
It's just me.
whatever, it's me. I'm
Yeah,
self-expressing.
Absolutely.
Just
Absolutely.
accept me.
Right.
But that wanting to self-express in a particular environment does
Right.
not work for you.
Correct.
So you want self-acceptance.
Yes.
Do you want self-acceptance or do you want an income?
Correct. Make a choice.
Make a choice.
And there's
If
a
I'm
conflict there you have to
Thank
take a decision around.
If I'm going to work at the bank and
Right.
I want to be accepted with 10 tattoos and whatever, in
May
this
not
day and
work.
age, it won't work.
Right.
So you must package yourself for that environment.
Correct.
Because why? Because you want income.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Money answer
All things.
all
It
things.
answereth all things.
Yeah.
Right.
So you want money.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So you package yourself to get the best that you can. You
Right.
package yourself in terms of the skills that you push, in terms of the skills you need to acquire.
Correct.
Today we need to acquire digital skills and
Right.
understanding of digital, the digital space. That's a critical skill. Package yourself and put that skill in there so that you can, when you go, you become marketable and you're able to get the job that you want.
Correct.
Because you need that. You need that money to
Right.
create an impact.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So you're packaging yourself for the workplace.
Right.
All right.
Right.
I think even when you're dating or you're packaging yourself.
Right.
you
Right.
know.
Right.
Nobody is going to come and take you
Just as you are.
Maybe some people might, but anyway.
It's unlikely. Until they'll take me the way I am.
Yeah, I think most of you put on your hair, you'll do nice things.
Right.
So you package yourself
Right.
and you don't stop improving yourself.
Correct.
Even your personal appearance.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Because it speaks.
Yep.
It speaks.
Correct.
And then you package yourself again now for legacy.
Right.
How do you package yourself for legacy?
Right.
That is now looking back, saying this was what my life meant.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And that's when you talk about people writing autobiographies
Right.
and all of that, and then they can put every single thing in there in
Yep.
their life story.
Right.
Look at Barack Obama. Barack Obama packaged himself for the American audience.
Right.
He understood Americans love a good story.
Right.
So what did he say? He wrote a book called Dreams from My Father.
Right.
He talked about coming, because Americans love the idea that you come from nowhere and you make something of your life.
Right.
And it's called the American dream.
Correct.
Anybody can be rich.
And it's part of the contrast you talked about earlier.
Anybody can be president.
Right.
Anybody can be
Right.
president, right? Okay. So he goes in with this story
Yep.
of being brought up by a white mother and
Right.
grandparents,
Right.
and a father coming from a rural village in Kenya.
Kenya.
But the reality is, his father was generally quite affluent.
Right.
But
Right.
the packaging of the story
Yes.
had to win the hearts
Correct.
of everybody.
Correct.
For people to say, this is the American dream.
Right.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
You know, so that is it. You're packaging your story, and
Right.
if they bought into anything,
Right.
they bought into the Obama story.
Correct.
If they bought, that was what they bought.
Right.
So even as a politician, you need to understand how you packaging yourself.
Right.
I think you look at the deputy president.
Right.
He's packaging himself as a hustler.
Right.
It's part of the package.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's all part of the package.
It's part of the package. He has to resonate
Wow.
with the audience.
Absolutely. No, Carol, this story can go on and on. Unfortunately, there's something that happens about time when good stories are happening.
Yes, yes.
But clearly, we've got to bring it to an end.
Yes.
And but I think you say it so well. You're permanently on a stage, different audiences at different times, and you've got to own and master your own story.
Yes.
Well, unfortunately, that's about all the time we have from it. Carol, I think we're going to have you back again.
My pleasure.
We're going to have you right back. But do conflicts ever end?
No, conflicts
don't
never end. It's because as long as you're growing and you're living and you're alive,
Yes.
even on the day before you die,
Right.
you will be resolving a conflict.
So
Maybe
you might
the
as well brace
conflict-
yourself for it.
Embrace your
And let it not
conflict.
stop you.
Yes.
It doesn't stop you. You
Yeah.
keep managing it as you
Surmounting
go.
it. Yeah.
Surmounting it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Carol,
Thank
for
you.
your time. Unfortunately, that's about all the time that we had for. I hope you picked something that will be useful in nurturing the gold that you are. I keep reminding you at the Goldmine, we see you as a goldmine, and we want to keep reminding you, you can stop the battle of just owning your story and running with it. Until next time, I'm Janice Njau. This has been at the Pete's Cafe. God bless you. Thank you so much. And keep working on yourself. Keep owning your story. Keep winning every day. God bless you, and see you next time. Carol, thank you.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.